It's been a while since we made a 4-star character, hasn't it? The last one was Misha, and I think that was months ago. In that case, though, we should really make this worthwhile, shouldn't we? I need to do this right, especially if it's our favorite bloodhound. I really don't know what was going on during the poll. It was like a fight of the century between CeeLo, Ron May, and Gallagher. Lucha got trampled, by the way, which I find really funny. But since Gallagher was holding the lead for the longest, and maybe because I really wanted to make a 4-star character, I decided to give him the win for this time. Gallagher does give quite a bit to work with, and I do have a plan for him already. Plus there's a lot we can do with his story as well. A character that is not who he seems, a character who has a deep history and bond with Penacony. He's already proved his worth in the story, and I don't really care what other people say. Gallagher is still one of my favorite healers. Take that, Lucha. Well, anyway, there's no need for me to linger any longer here, so let's get going then. Gallagher, an officer of the Bloodhound family, or so he claims to be. A talented mixologist, courteous and vigilant, holding the name of Penacony itself. I did have the idea of making him a lycanthrope, but I think I realized quite early on that I was overestimating my ability of justifying certain things. But it did remind me of something else. So I decided to go with the Shifter. Also known as the Were-Touched, shifters are believed to be descendants of humans and lycanthropes. People with beast-like traits who can't really shapeshift in the general sense, but they have the ability to enhance their more animalistic features, whatever they may be. They have an increase to their dexterity, dark vision, and proficiency in perception. Once you have shifted, it lasts for 1 minute or until you die or revert back on your own, and it gives you temporary hit points equal to your constitution modifier. You also get some additional abilities depending on your subrace. For Gallagher specifically, I went with the more canine traits, that being the long tooth. It gives him a bonus to his strength and dexterity, proficiency in intimidation, and you also get elongated fangs to deal piercing damage. Yes, you get to bite people. Now, after all of that, we move on to his class now. When it came to an abundance character, I usually go with either cleric or druid or spellcasters in general. But for Gallagher specifically, I decided to give him the monk class, because he's good at punching people. Of course though, he's an abundance character, so you need to go with a class that can heal people. So I decided to choose the Way of Mercy. Ignoring the whole mask thing, the subclass gives a good mix of fighter and healer. That's my opinion though. It allows him to do damage and healing. It gives him proficiency in insight and medicine, as well as the herbalism kit. You can see that as him learning a bit more about plants, while trying to find new ingredients for his drinks. At 3rd level, you get the ability to use your key points to heal someone in battle. The number healed is dependent on your martial arts die, as well as your wisdom modifier. You can also replace one of your strikes while using Flurry of Blows to heal someone without expending a key point. At the same time, you can also inflict necrotic damage on your enemies, the same way as your healing, though this ability can only be used once per turn. At 6th level, both your healing and your harm is upgraded, where you can now get rid of one condition that is inflicted on an ally, whether it's blindness, deafness, paralysis, or so on, or you can start poisoning people until the end of your next turn. What is this man putting into his drinks? But yeah, that's his class, the Way of Mercy. You don't really need to have the mask on you. I personally am just ignoring that for lore reasons, just for my own role-playing purposes, but you can give him a wolf mask if it suits you better. For his ability scores, his strength will have to be his highest, then wisdom, then intelligence, constitution, charisma, and then for my own choices I made dexterity his lowest. When it comes to his background, I just gave him City Watch. He did call himself a member of the Bloodhound family, and he acts that part for the majority of the story. Only right to give him that, just to hide his true purposes behind it, you know? As for his feat, I decided to just give him athlete, because he's a pretty buff man. Anyway, the athlete feat gives him an increase to his dexterity or strength. Standing up after being knocked prone only costs you 5 feet of movement. It doesn't cost you extra when climbing, and you only need 5 feet when jumping a gap instead of the 10 feet that you usually have to need. Honestly, quite useful, especially navigating terrains. It's pretty nice. Moving on to his languages, I gave him Gnomish and Undercommon. Mostly as a reference to Dreamflux Reef, where I'm just flavoring it as the Underdark of Penacony, and the Pepeshi people who are common in Penacony. As for his proficiencies, I gave him Alchemist Supplies, which is the closest to a Mixology kit, and as for his skills, I gave him History and Religion. Again, mainly because of his knowledge on Penacony and the Watchmaker, as well as his little stint with Sunday. He has no magic, so we move on to his equipment. Again, Alchemist Supplies as his Mixology kit stand-in. Monks don't really need weapons to fight, so I'm not really sure what to add besides that. It also suits Gallagher in a strange way. Low maintenance needed, and he'll still outperform everyone on the field. At least that's my experience with him. Whenever I needed a good healer on the field, I just pick him. I am also unwilling to discuss the time he beat something unto death after I kind of forgot how to fight for a bit. Rin forgot how to read, okay? Anyway, after revealing that embarrassing little detail about myself, let's move on to his backstory now. Writing something befitting of his character. The warden's eyes were closed, the taste of the syrupy drink running down his throat as he downed it in one go. During his work hours, he likes to perform the role of a diligent and well-respected guard, of the shining city of bright songs and entertainment. But when he's off the clock though, when the days have treated him a bit too harshly, those who know him best would always find him wandering his way to the local tavern, pouring drinks for customers, while lamenting over his dreams that had been shattered a long time ago. His golden years have long since passed him, the whispers say, yet he can't help but reminisce about those times, as he watches his visitors pass him by. They had fought together, valiantly for their freedom. They had promised one another that they would hold on to that dream until their dying breaths. He entrusted that dream to him, and he swore to his old friend that he would never allow it to die out. Not while he still breathes, not when countless others have died to the cause already. Though, as years passed, that dream he had promised them was slowly crushed under the weight of atrocities. When his ideals were tested, and he found himself in a sea of doubts and confusion. When the stench of alcohol became more comforting to him than the voices of those who used to guide him in the past. And yet, on darker days, when the booze no longer worked as his company, the memory would resurface itself again, as it reminded him of the face he could never forget. The night when he stood beside his old friend, a full moon hanging above the sky, like an omen of what was to come. He could hear the sound of ticking coming from a pocket watch in his friend's hand. He always smiled at him, as if he was telling the funniest joke, but they both knew there was nothing left for them to laugh at, not anymore. The man flicked the lid of the pocket watch, but the ticking persisted between the two of them. Suppose this, my friend. Suppose if all the clocks in the city displayed the wrong time. Suppose the only way you can keep your promise is through betrayal. What would it all mean to you? The then young soldier could only stare at him in disbelief. He knew what the man was implying then, but he couldn't bring himself to respond. The only way that the man even knew that his friend had heard him was the sudden furrowing of his brows, as he stared at him across the empty field. If the dead can truly return back to life, what would happen to him if he discovered that his name were to have been stripped entirely from this tale? His friend smiled at him, and a dark cloud passed between them and the moon. He heard the flicking of the pocket watch again, and the only thing left between them was the ticking timepiece to keep track of their lives. The flame flickered in the tavern, as customers began to leave for the night. Only 2 of them stayed behind, 2 young soldiers who were gossiping to one another about a large fight that broke out in the city a few days prior. That can't be true. You're kidding me, right? How could I have not heard of it? Of course it wasn't true. The story that the other man had spun was far too unrealistic to be believable, right? And yet, if one tells a lie so genuinely, it doesn't matter anymore where the line lies. The most genuine lie he could ever tell anyone was that of himself. A lie so beautifully woven by 2 friends that he could no longer tell where the lie begins and where it ends anymore. Words so insincere, never revealing what laid underneath it. Yet he knows, they both know, that it's the only way for this story to become the truth. Anyway, thank you for listening to this story. I hope this was good enough for you guys. I think I did an okay job for this one. I had quite a bit of fun with it anyway. I honestly just love Penacony and I loved his part in the story. It might be my biases talking, but you know what, it's fine. Why is there no 4 stars in Amphorius anyway? Hoyo, explain. Explain the bowskin, Hoyo, explain it! Anyway, I thank you guys for sticking around for the end. Thank you for watching this, like and subscribe if you like, and I hope to see you all again next time. Take care.